This review is brought to you by Boksu. Use code TheDigino to get $15 off your first Boksu order. Digimon Ghost Game episode 26 introduced us to Angoramon's closest ally in the life prior to meeting Ruli. If Ruli is Angoramon's partner during his time in the human world, then Digitamamon was the closest thing Angoramon had to a partner back in the digital world prior to the events of the series. This episode is really about the clash of Angoramon's old and new ways of life, with Ruli meeting Digitamamon and Angoramon having to decide where his allegiance lies, where his moral compass points, and who he wants to be. There's a bit of a betrayal in this episode, a traitor in our midst, with Digitamamon inviting Ruli and the others to meet at an abandoned mansion so they can be devoured. Angoramon is definitely pushed to his limits here, but was the ultimate evolution needed? Like how last week we got Gamamon's ultimate, Vaismon. We'll talk about all that and more because this is the episode 26 review. If you're new to the Digino, welcome. We talk Digimon every week via episode reviews and discussions, with the occasional midweek video when there's exciting news to discuss, or I have a sort of video essay worth sharing. Be sure to subscribe if you like the sound of any of that. Now onto the episode review. Like I mentioned, Angoramon is reunited with his old friend from the digital world, Digitamamon. The first thing that feels off about this reunion is the fact that apparently Digitamamon has been in the human world for a solid 6 months without reaching out. One would suspect he was a new arrival at first, and it's odd that he's been here for 6 months without making an effort to find Angoramon, especially since Digimon are meeting via Angoramon's sort of Digi Midnight Society. Digitamamon hears the story of Ghost Game so far basically and is intrigued by the idea of Digimon and humans partnering up. He wants to meet Ruli, Hiro, and Kyoshiro and arranges a meetup at this abandoned mansion that he stays in. Looking back, I really like the little story hint here where Digitamamon is fascinated by humans and Digimon working together because of what we later learn, how Digitamamon really views humans. We'll talk about it later, but in light of that worldview that he reveals he has, there's no reason for humans and Digimon to cooperate in his mind, but we'll get there in just a bit. Ruli and Angoramon are the first to arrive, and Ruli sits here and listens to the two old friends reminisce about the good old days in the digital world. They study the true nature of the digital world. Interestingly, they mentioned there was no information on humans or the human world back then, but they were determined to learn everything they could about their world, the digital world. Truly knowledge seekers back in the day. Ruli is invited upstairs to see a doll collection, I suppose, and starts to notice all of this sand or dust throughout the house. While Angoramon stays downstairs, Digitamamon goes up with Ruli and, while isolated, tries to eat her, betraying Ruli and Angoramon's trust. Here is where the episode really takes a turn into the action-y monster fight show we know and love, and we'll talk about that back half in just a second and all of its twists and turns. But before we get into that, my friends at Boksu wanted to say a quick hello, and I wanted to give you a sneak peek at what's inside one of their premium Japanese snack boxes. Boksu is a monthly snack box subscription service that delivers premium, delicious Japanese snacks and tea pairings straight from Japan right to your door. Whenever I visited Japan, the first thing on my itinerary is buying a bunch of snacks at the closest kombini and doing a taste test back at our hotel. Boksu is the real deal. Opening up the box they sent me, I felt like I was back in Japan snacking before a busy day of sightseeing. The first Boksu you'll get is Seasons of Japan, curated by Boksu's snack experts to give you a taste of Japan's 4 seasons and a sense of what a year of Boksu will taste like. After that, every Boksu features a new theme, providing a gourmet journey through Japan, plus an awesome cultural booklet that tells you more about the theme and the snacks. My box was birthday themed in celebration of Boksu's 6th anniversary. It even had a few Japanese words to teach you, like birthday and anniversary, which I thought was super fun, especially if you're trying to learn kanji or hiragana. Now, the competition was fierce, but I have to say my favorites so far are this Japanese style curry potato snack. These were unreal, so tasty. Boksu has a special offer exclusively for my viewers. Use code TheDigino to get $15 off your first Boksu Japanese snack box. The link will be in the description, of course. Whether you've been and you just want to reminisce, or you've always wanted to know what Japanese snacks taste like, Boksu is going to be perfect for you. Thanks so much for supporting the channel, Boksu. Now back to the video. Angoramon stops Digitamamon from attacking Ruli, and around this time, Hiro, Kyoshiro, and their Digimon also arrive on the scene. There's a ton of fun action here, especially with the always cool to see Jinba Angoramon. The agility on display rules, and I also got the answer to a question I had last week. In this fight, Gamamon goes to Wezen Gamamon, and then from Wezen later goes to Kano Vaismon, and it has its own unique animation featuring Wezen going into Kano. I wasn't sure we were going to see that happen with either Wezen or Kaus, but this week immediately proved me wrong. While the action on display is strong, it's really the dialogue here that makes the back half of this episode stand out. Digitamamon truly sees no problem with consuming humans, especially drawing the comparison between humans eating animals, really looking at the food chain and kind of implying Digimon should be higher up in the food chain, consuming humans for sustenance, and he claims there's nothing wrong with that. Though we learned that he didn't always think there was nothing wrong with it, we hear about the first time he ever ate a human and how conflicted he was. He was living in the mansion, but in that hologram form where he couldn't be seen. When he one day became visible to the humans, he panicked panicked at their panic and devoured the man living in the house kind of instinctually. When he tried to spit him back out, only sand came out of Digitamamon's mouth. Then, in one of the darker lines of the episode, Digitamamon confesses that it was one of the most satisfying meals of his entire life, how he felt incredible after doing so, and the implication is that Digitamamon has eaten a ton of other humans in between that first meal and today. It's no surprise that Angoramon is against this, considering his partner and friends are humans, and he does what he needs to do in order to stop Digitamamon. Like I mentioned, Kano Weissmon gets involved in the fight, but it's really Jinba Angoramon who lands the decisive blow. He asks Digitamamon why it had to come to this, reminding him that they were once researchers of knowledge and kind of should be above this, I guess, addiction to consuming other living things mindlessly. All he says in response is, "Don't get in my way," and then Angoramon finishes the fight. While fading away, Digitamamon delivers a haunting analysis, telling Angoramon that he's the one who's changed. Digitamamon asks Angoramon if he is a Digimon or is he a human. He's really asking where his allegiance lies. If it came down to it and it was a Digimon versus humans in an all-out war, which side would Angoramon stand and fight for? Whether this is literal foreshadowing or not, I love leaving the episode on this note. We have seen the show talk over and over about the bridge between the human and digital worlds being necessary, and we've seen characters like Myotismon last week talking about his superiority over the human race. Perhaps a Digi versus human war is coming to Ghost Game in the near future. Let me know what you think, of course, by leaving a comment. The last thing in the episode that stood out to me is that for what I believe is the first time in Digimon Ghost Game, Angoramon is not the one to deliver that little outro poem. Instead, Ruli steps in, saying one or two lines about how the house still stands to this day, as if nothing had ever happened here. I love the idea that the in-universe Angoramon was too devastated by the events of this episode, by the betrayal and the loss of his old best friend, that he was like, "No, sorry guys, I can't do the poem this week. Ruli, can you cover me? I gotta go." Digimon Ghost Game is very good at playing with our expectations, and I will say, after seeing the preview last week, I did not expect Digitamamon to be the traitor and the villain of the week that he was. I thought if anything we'd get a heroic sacrifice from him in a battle with a different villain, so I have to give the episode points for genuinely catching me off guard with the villain of the week. I say this every week, but I hope they are going somewhere with some of these plot hints, like Digitamamon asking Angoramon if he's on Team Human or Team Digimon at the end there. I was also kind of surprised that Angoramon did not Digivolve to Ultimate in order to win this fight. Ruli and Angoramon have been super active in the last few episodes, so there have been a ton of opportunities for these two to achieve the ultimate evolution. Between the Skullgreymon Nightmares episode, the invitation to Myotismon's lair, and now this, I wonder if we'll get both Jellymon and Angoramon's evolutions before episode 30, or if they'll drag it out a bit. It is kind of wild that we're 26 episodes into a Digimon series and only one kid has his ultimate. I know it's a bit different with all of Gamamon's slide evolutions, but Ghost Game is definitely doing its own thing, and it's not easy or fair to compare it to past series and take points away because it isn't doing something that the other shows did. We'll only really be able to judge Ghost Game when it's all said and done. But this week, as a standalone episode, I certainly had a blast watching it. Anyways, that's the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. My favorite part of Sunday is always reading your thoughts below. Thanks for watching, have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.